Origi!
Hello and welcome to the winter break edition of the Liverpool Way podcast. Befitting the season, there's been some snow on the ground and there's no game until Bournemouth away at the weekend. We've got plenty to chat about though, thanks to some newsworthy items and some great listener questions. I'm Chris Smith and I'm joined as always by TLW editor Dave Usher and Paul Natton. Unfortunately, none of the lads with a decent memory were available, so these questions are going to be interesting. Dave, how's the winter break been so far for you? All 6 days of it?
Yeah, not too bad. I went down south at the weekend. Gail and Adriana were going to that Warner Brothers studio tour thing. I'd done it before. I didn't want to do it, so booked myself in to play golf. Played at a nice fancy course, West Hertfordshire. It was really nice. Not what I'm used to be honest. It's like teeing off on the first and there's deer grazing on the side of the fairway. I'm like, fuck, I've stood there just looking at it. I took a photo of it and everything because I'm like, this is just weird. I normally play at Bootle. The only wildlife you see there are fucking staffies and the potheads fishing in the ponds. But no, it was nice. Yeah, it was nice.
Is that just Terry?
Yeah.
Of course, at Bootle as well, you've got Dave Lister's butt crack divot when he lost his virginity as a 12-year-old as well. So that's nice. One for the Red Dwarf fans there. Yeah. Did your play befit the setting? Did you play well?
I played all right. I was going along nicely, and then I had a bit of a disaster. I got to the 8th, and I was only 2 over at that point. But I hit my ball over the green, and it went down this it was like a big steep embankment. So I'm looking for my ball for around the top of it, and I thought, it's probably rolled down. So I walked down. Well, I say walk. I slid down, just about stayed on my feet. I couldn't fucking get back up to the green. It was this big, honestly, it was probably like a 25-foot drop, and it was all around the green. And every time I tried to climb up, my shoes were full of mud and leaves, so I had no traction. And every time I tried to climb up, I fell and slid down again. And I was actually getting worried at this point because there was hardly anybody on the course. And I'm like, what if I can't get up here? What if I'm stuck here? And I ended up I was like, right, compose yourself. I'm sure you can get up. You've got down, you can get up. So I thought, what do I do? So I scraped all the shit off my shoes for a start. I thought, okay, if I could just give myself a little bit of I can get halfway up. And I ended up, the way I crawled up was basically just on all fours. I was like fucking gladiators climbing up the wall. I was covered in mud when I got up to the top. So after that, I was like, it just shook me, and I was like, I'm out of me zone now. My game just went to shit then. And I only played about 12 holes, and then I was panicking because it was starting to get dark, and I didn't know my way back to the clubhouse. And my phone battery was on 8%. I'm like, am I going to be just wandering around these fucking forests with the deer? So I thought, I'm going now. I'm leaving while I've still got daylight. So I played 12 holes and then got off. But despite all that, it was really nice just being out in beautiful surroundings with the wildlife and that. So yeah, it was good.
Welcome to your 50s, Dave.
You wouldn't have been very good in World War One, would you, Dave, to be honest? In
the
trenches, you'd have been...
I wouldn't have been able to get out the trench, would I? So at least I'd have survived. They'd be like, over the wall, come on, and I'd be like, I'm trying.
How about you, Paul? How's your...
I can't compete with Dave's golf story there, mate, sorry. Back to work, back into the groove of things. That's about it. Not a lot exciting going on here. Just had a lovely Christmas, had some nice time off with the family and that, but yeah, just back to it really. Same as the rest of the world.
Good. What have you been?
I had a little date with your guys' mate over the weekend.
Hey!
Oh yeah. Fuck.
Yeah. He's after all the shit he pulled, he somehow thinks he can just walk back into my life and No, Luis Suarez had his introductory press conference into Miami. There was an open training session in the morning as well, but I had a bit too much to drink the night before, so I didn't really feel like getting up and going to it. But it was Suarez and Messi and Busquets and Alba and all that. I kind of regret it now.
No shit. Seriously.
Yeah. But I didn't have a commission. I got myself in for the press conference and wanted to go along and put my glims on him and just. You know what? He's not as ugly as I remember him being.
No, he's definitely.
You start to soften already,
face,
mate.
I know.
He's softening already, Dave.
I
Oh,
think
he
you know,
will. You'll be like us in
Yeah.
a couple of weeks.
all the old memories started to flood back. All those old good memories of biting and yeah.
Next time you go, you should wear a John Ruddy mask. Just make him feel at home.
No, but you know, I did find myself starting to warm to him a little bit. I had a good question lined up for him, but with Inter Miami, it's weird because like almost all of the people who cover the team, a lot of the people who cover the team are Latino. A lot of the, you know, most of the players are Spanish speaking, and even the English reporters ask their questions in Spanish. It's almost like, you know, being in South America or something. So I had a good question lined up. I was going to ask him what he said to Darwin about his finishing and whether he's given him any advice and what he needs to do to come good. And
that would have been
what the
brilliant.
mesh, you know. But I don't go as regularly to these press conferences as I should do, and all of the regulars get their questions, so I probably wouldn't have got it anyway. But I was too intimidated because nobody had asked a question in English, and I'm not going to be the one uneducated fuck who, you know, shows his ignorance by not being able to converse in Spanish in the Spanish-speaking market. So
You've got to go in with a sorry, I don't speak Spanish, Lewis, but, and then switch to your English.
Well, after I did, after almost more or less towards the end, it was the second to last question. Someone did ask one in English, and it was just like, "Have you had a conversation with David Beckham yet?" And Suarez answered in English best he could. And if I'd have had the opportunity, I'd have just said, like, "I'm asking you this question in English. Feel free to answer the question in Spanish," because he answered everything really deliberately and took ages over the answers and everything, and was quite happy and jovial. I'm looking forward to seeing him play now. So I would also felt a little bit arse asking him a question because I haven't been very complimentary of him down the years. So it would have been a bit weird for this bloke who's like really been outspokenly critical of him. All of a sudden to ask him a question in good faith, I would have felt a bit arse. But
the ice has started to melt now. I can hear it in your voice. So
Yeah.
next press conference, you're back. You can ask him whatever you want.
But you could have just said, "I'm asking for a friend."
If you can get back up the slope from the golf course to hear the answer.
And you're wearing a TLW pod t-shirt as well.
I did. I represented
That was boss.
the pod.
That love that.
Yeah, I was thinking it might be a bit of an in for me because he might have recognised the liver bird on the crest, but there was loads of people there. It's like 100 people there. The interest is huge, so it's going to continue to be fun to cover Inter Miami and watch Inter Miami as well now. And I think he'll be ace for him, won't he? Because his winning mentality is such that he's not just going to come there and just down tools and, you know, dick about for a year like some of the like, you know, say Gareth Bale for instance. That's going to piss Jules off, but all of those jabronis who just come over for the retirement tour.
Well, look, when he went to Brazil, he went like they were newly promoted. Did they win the title in the end? I know they were going for the league with a couple of games to go. I don't know if they won it or not, but he basically joined a newly promoted team and almost won them the title. So yeah, he's not going to go there and just phone it in. No chance.
I'll tell you what,
he's not capable of it.
Three of us can have a discussion about Suarez without it descending into a fight again. That's good news, right?
Do you know what though? It's probably better that you didn't get to ask it on his introductory press conference because that's going to be all about Inter Miami and all that. But you may get a chance when things have settled down, and he may do another press conference, and you could maybe slip one in then without it being seen as, what the fuck are you asking that for? You know, this is his unveiling.
No, I don't. I generally speaking don't give a shit about that. When players and people are in front of the media, as far as I'm concerned, it's an open forum to ask them whatever burning question you've got for them, really. So that wouldn't have bothered me. But you know,
it might have bothered their press office, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
Fuck them.
All right, so we've got loads of decent questions, but a couple of things have happened in the break. Like City have had a game and won. De Bruyne came back and looked mustard, won the game for them. So that's put the shits up a bunch of Reds. Trent went to Milan and dressed like an absolute... I mean, you know, you Liverpool lads have your own sense of fashion. What do you reckon, Paul? Was that a good look for him, or...
I don't know. It was a bit on the weird side, wasn't it? But I think Trent likes to carve out that little space for himself that's just this side of DCL, doesn't he? You know, I think he's into loads of stuff that most of the other players aren't into. You know, he's big into his Formula One and all of that. You don't see loads of footballers around that, or maybe Jules will correct me on that one. Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about that fashion shoot. What's his kind of end game there? Is he kind of is it just something he's genuinely into, or is it part of the whole brand trend thing? Don't know. It was a bit weird. Like, it was weird.
Yeah, it made me a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest. I'm like, I'd rather he was just like what the other lads are doing, because Trent's contract situation's starting to loom over us a little bit. It's not really being spoke about, but 18 months now, and doesn't look like there's been. And I'd say there's no development, but we never know, do we? It's like
Pierce did something in the Athletic today about it. It was just basically all he was doing was raising the flag to say Virgil, Mo, and Trent are all in the last 18 months.
But for all anyone knows, though, Paul, like they may well sign and announce it tomorrow. You know, we don't normally get warning that it's going to happen.
I mean, Pierce's take was that the club has got really tight relationships with all three players and their agents, and it's nothing to worry about. I would have thought it would be sound. He's not going anywhere. He'll want a lot of money though, and rightly so, because he's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's liking this European lifestyle and all of that, and then Bellingham's at Madrid. I don't know.
Man, wouldn't that be the ultimate?
Fucking hell, Dave.
Contract, get him tied down.
I
can't settle until that contract's done. I'm not worried in the slightest about Virgil and Mo. That will take care of itself. They'll sign. I'm not worried.
Scouser, vice captain. He's going nowhere. We just got to not take the piss.
You say
the
that.
Contract.
What if all along we were thinking, oh yeah, Trent's out there doing Jude's bidding,
yeah.
You know, going to bring him to Anfield, and that whole time it was basically just Jude Bellingham. Now I'm going to Madrid in the summer, and you can join me a year later, and we'll hook up together that way.
Oh God.
No, so,
Dave, you put a fucking downer on it now. That's done me head in. Why have you said that?
It's being realistic.
You're not being realistic. You're being fucking pessimistic.
I'm being realistic.
There might be a copyright issue with Dan here. Dan's normally the one who's got the negative
I'm just
take.
saying it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's a possibility as long as that contract isn't signed. Get it done. Get him signed.
It'll get done. Move, Chris. Move on.
Okay. All I was going to say is there are shades of David James about the whole Armani or GQ or whatever it was.
No, he's fucking brilliant. He's too good. He's too good for David James.
Paul, we had Howard Webb on TV tonight, and I know that's something you wanted to. Well, Dave said you wanted to touch on it. I mean, you haven't spoken before the podcast today, so Dave said he didn't want to watch it because it would just repulse him too much. What did you make of that justification? Well, not justification, but that pseudo admission of an incorrect decision that cost us so big against Arsenal.
I mean, basically, he's like, I don't know. I said something in the group chat. I haven't watched the whole show. Terry just posted the one about the Odegaard handball that we didn't get against Arsenal, and so I watched that because Terry had linked it up in the chat. And I mean, Howard Webb's take is basic. I mean, he basically stands there in his fucking slick suit with those like coached sort of hand gestures that he does, with Michael Owen sort of as his stooge to the side, and he basically just goes, "Yeah, we were wrong. Next." That's the subtext of what he was saying. And I just the whole thing for me is, he made some comments about the noise, the narrative around the people in the game afterwards was those should be handballs, and I agree. Well, fucking yeah, everybody thought that at the time. It was absolutely bizarre, and yet your lads had all this extra time to watch it and came to a completely different conclusion. And yet he's just so kind of like blasé about the whole thing. His whole demeanour was just, yeah, wrong, next one, move on. Just like there was no contrition, there was no sense that no shame, no embarrassment. You know, the thing that just makes me angry about all this is the way pricks like this always stay in the jobs. There's just fuck all accountability for people like him, I think. You know, it's always the accountability goes to the middle, or especially to people at the bottom, but fuck all for people at the top. I just think this guy's coming here with this, supposedly with this mandate to completely fix what was broken, and he's taken what was bad to worse. You know, he's had the worst refereeing controversy in the history of the English game, I think. The thing that affected us against Spurs.
That's a fact.
He's had that happen on his watch, and he just got sort of like, yeah, we got it wrong. Move on to the next one. And then there's a litany of things that go against successive clubs. Wolves have been battered continually with bad decisions going against them. I think Brighton had their turn, didn't they?
Last year, Brighton, yeah.
Yeah, and he just, all he does is just kind of like just do his little slick show with his little slick sidekick, bland as fuck, the whole thing, and it's just kind of a brief explanation, really trite, flippant almost, and yeah, we were wrong, got to do, and just move on. There wasn't even an attempt to say sorry. It's just bullshit. The whole thing's bullshit. I mean, I'm going over ground that I don't think anybody who's into footy would disagree with. VAR is fucking shit. I briefly listened to John linked up. Jeff Stelling's got a new podcast, and he linked it up in the group chat today. And I, when I was out scraping the frozen snow and ice off the drive after my tea, I was listening to that, and James Milner was on it. And Jeff Stelling asked him near the end about VAR, and Milner's answer is basically what pretty much everyone now says in the game when they're asked about it. He basically said, it's absolutely fucking shit, but we're stuck with it. I mean, obviously those weren't his exact words, but that is basically what everyone is saying. You hear any player, any pundit talking about VAR now, and certainly any fans, and that's what they say. And the whole thing's just a joke. And what pisses me off most about it all is that it just seems to be taking the game further away from the people who matter the most, which is the fans and the players. It's shit. And Howard Webb just epitomises all of that. And the worst thing is, he wants you to fucking think how, I don't know, how professional he is while he tells you that he's shit at his job with his shitty little suit and his shitty little hand gestures. Fucking bellend.
Bad Tory.
Bad Tory. Fucking busy cunts.
What is the point of the show, though? Because I don't think all it does, I think it just makes people more pissed off. I don't think it solves anything or makes you look at things in a more sympathetic light and go, oh, yeah, okay, I can see why they were thinking that. I just think it's a fucking joke. And you talk about accountability, and you're saying, like, there's no accountability for Webb, and it's always, like, people lower down. I don't think there's accountability for anybody with PGMOL. You know, what happens to them when, like, they fuck up, but they get a week in the Championship? But, I mean, you go back to Darwin, England. I said it at the time, and I still say it now, even months after the fact, when, like, you think they've had a bit more time to calm down or whatever. He should not have worked again in football. That mistake was so bad, and not just the mistake that he made, but the fact that he then didn't correct it. What do you have to do to get sacked? Because that's as bad as you could possibly do, other than, like, assaulting a player. Although we've seen that happen as well, and they've got away with that. Yeah, but what can you do that, as in his position? What could he do that was worse than what he did? There's nothing. So that's as bad as it gets. And what was his punishment? His punishment was, you're not working on Liverpool games anymore. Well, hang on a minute. Nothing was made.
They'd probably all welcome that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but here's the thing. If this was just a genuine mistake and he wasn't, like, trying to fuck Liverpool over, why is his punishment not the same as everybody else's, where it's like, okay, you've got a week in the Championship, or, you know, a month in the Championship, whatever the punishment is, and then when he comes back, he's just as likely to cover Liverpool games as he is everybody else. The fact that keeping him away from our games just makes no sense. It's like, so you're telling me, like, you don't trust him to do our games? Is that what you're saying? You think he's going to fuck us over again, so that's why he's not allowed in our games? Or is it because if Paul Tierney can keep working Liverpool games, I don't see why Darwin England isn't on Liverpool games, because Paul Tierney has fucked us so many more times than Darwin England did, which, you know, it was bad as it gets, but he wasn't on our radar until that one, was he? You know, I don't remember him doing anything in any of our games prior to that, nothing massively significant. But, like, I just don't see how you can do something in whatever line of work you're in. There's, like, certain things where if you do something that's, like, so egregious, there's no way back. It's like, look, I'm sorry, it's not working out. We can't have you back. You're done. And Darwin England should have been fucked off immediately after that game. The fact he's still doing games now, it makes me sick.
You're going over old ground a little bit here. Like, have you got anything, like, to add, like, to what Webb said, or I mean, I
only know what Paul said, so I don't know.
Yeah, the way I look at it is just like VAR is footy's 9/11. Like, it happened, the world changed irrecoverably after that, and there's no going back to the way it was before. So, you know, it's going to suck now, basically.
And Milner said that, like, and Milner's supposedly saying we're stuck with it. Well, I said this before. We're not stuck with it if the players and the managers say, you know what, fuck this off. And if they all come together and say, we're not playing games until you get rid of it, there would be
at the expense of...
They'd have to get rid of VAR. They'd have to.
But why would they? Like, they're all...
Because there'd be no footy if the players and managers were like
I know
basically
they're
went
not
on
going to do
strike.
Dave, are they? Because they're just fucking...
But if they all hate it, they should.
Multi-millionaires and stuff, and they're not going to put that at risk, are they? Like, they're not going to be in
It's not
breach
gonna
of
be
their
at
contracts
risk.
by refusing to play and that kind of stuff, are they? So
They're not going to be at risk.
You're assuming
if
that
they
they
stand
care
together.
that much.
No, but I know that's exactly what I'm
Yep.
saying. They don't care that much, or they're the ones with the power. We're not the ones with the power. There's absolutely fuck all.
Do you know what I think about all of this? I think it's almost, what worries me slightly is, unlike most, whilst I absolutely deplore what football costs these days. I mean, it's just obscene. Like, and we just accept that it's obscene, don't we? And we all lash out a fucking fortune. To go the game costs a fortune. To watch it legally costs a fortune. However, I've always kind of, in my mind, justified that because I think the quality of the game itself, of the football, is just the best it's ever been, generally speaking. It's the professionalism of the players, the athleticism of the players, the pace it's played at, the amount of goals that are scored, the quality of the attacking football. I just think it's all the best it's ever been, in my view. But what worries me about shit like this is it's just getting, it's getting too smart, it's getting too clever, and I wonder if this can become, it slowly becomes like the death of 1,000 cuts, where they keep just making these little changes and they fuck each one up, and over time it just erodes. There won't be a dramatic fall off in support, but what it'll do is it'll alienate people, and people think this is shit, and then football will just incrementally just fall away a little bit. I don't think football's too big to fail. It's too popular to fail. But I just think the product that, I've used that, I didn't want to use that phrase, but I've used it. The game that we love the most, the game that we absolutely love the most, will not quite be the same because of this and other things. They're talking about things like the sin bin and all that shit. I mean, if it's not broken, why are you trying to fucking fix it? The thing I used to really admire about the way they set the stall out with the laws of the game is that it was this universality of it, in that the game can be refereed in the same way in a World Cup or Champions League final as it can be refereed in, like, when Adriana used to play for her girls team, Dave, when she was like 11 and 12. The same standards of refereeing and the same laws can be applied to that. Now that's gone. It's totally gone, and it's not for the betterment of the game. It's also not for the betterment of the spectacle. You think of lots of the rule changes, the law changes over the years, 3 points for a win, the back pass rule, many of the adjustments to the offside laws, although recently it's got ridiculous. They've all been about making the game more exciting, more attacking.
Yeah. Rules
to stop the goalkeeper picking the ball up and holding it, all of that. Not just back pass, amounts of time that the keeper can have it for. All of those sorts of things. It makes the game more exciting. What this is doing is going the opposite way, and it's absolutely killing the emotion of the game. If football is not about an emotive reaction to exciting passages of play or controversial passages of play, then what's it about? And VAR is just denuding it of all of that. It's absolute fucking bullshit.
Just a quick point on what you said there,
Quickly,
really quick. I totally agree with you about like the standards being higher than ever before, all of that stuff. Totally agree, 100%. And yet, as a spectacle, it's not as enjoyable, and we know why.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. So it should be more enjoyable than ever because the standard's so high, but it's not, and it's because of all the stupid changes they brought in.
Yeah, all right, good point. Right, let's get on to some of the questions then. I've picked out one that is particularly fun because we've gone a little bit longer than I'd hoped for on the VAR stuff. Darren Hughes on Twitter asks, picture the scene with an exclamation point. To save your life, Liverpool have to win a penalty shootout. Which 5 Liverpool players from any era do you choose to be your champions? I love that. It's got like a Game of Thrones sort of element to it. Or to rephrase it, who do you think are the top 5 penalty takers that have played for us? I think that's a slightly different question, really. Like if you're talking about life saving to score a penalty, or if you're talking about like good penalty takers. But who are you going for, Dave?
Well, either way, I'm going for the same 5 because I feel like the two go hand in hand. The first 2, absolutely no question in my mind, was Molby and Aldridge. I put them clear ahead of everyone else. I'd add Milner in there, balls of steel, great penalty record. I trust Milner as much as I trust anybody. I'm putting Gerrard in there because he's done it on like the biggest of occasions. I know he's missed some as well, but he's still in the top 5 percentage wise for penalties, and he scored like the biggest ones. So that's 4, and then the 5th one was Phil Neal or Danny Murphy. I always trusted Danny Murphy with penalties, but I think I'll go for Phil Neal just because he took more and he took them in like bigger games. So yeah, me 5: Molby, Aldridge, Gerrard, Milner, Phil Neal, and I'm taking Kelleher in goal.
Okay, nice. Paul, you're not putting Mo Salah in there?
No. Do you know what I'm going to put in there? So I'm exactly the same as Dave. The very first 2 I went were Big Jan and Aldo. I mean, they're just, I don't know, maybe it's our age, but both of those are absolutely just like
the stats back it up, Paul. It's not just our
right.
Age, the stats back it up.
I haven't looked at the stats, but I just my gut was it. I mean, the first 2 names that came to mind were those. Stevie, such a big game player. Got to be Phil Neal was the other one, and then I just went Luis Suarez because I just fucking love him, and penalties are such big moments as well.
He never used to take them.
I know he didn't. I don't even care. I don't care. I just know he's such a big moments and big game player, and he'd do something outrageous like just fucking change feet or something. Yeah, lash it in the top corner. Just switch feet at the last minute and lash it in the opposite top corner.
Chris, next into Miami press conference, ask Suarez if he'd be willing to take a penalty to save Paul's life.
Yeah. No chance. Jesus Christ, that's bold of you. That's some devotion, man.
Fucking love him.
For me, the only one I would change necessarily is I love Danny Murphy for pens as well. Like the only win I ever saw us have at Old Trafford was the 1-0. I think it was in 2004 in Gerrard's last season, and we won 1-0. And it was Danny Murphy penalty. All the other times I've been to Old Trafford, I've seen us get smashed, so that sticks out in the memory for me. That's a precious situation. The only one I'd consider because of the life-saving elements is Carragher, maybe. Just the conviction of the penalties that he has taken for us in finals before. Like, just balls and reliability. And if I was going to put my life in somebody's hands, then I'd certainly put that in the hands of him. That's why I made the distinction in terms of the question between best penalty takers and someone who'd save your life. He just strikes me as somebody who'd be, like, more reliable in that situation because he understood the stakes.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Rather than Suarez, who try out Rabona or whatever. But yeah, I agree with you on Molby. I agree with you on Gerrard, Aldo, Milner, and probably Aldridge as well.
Yeah.
Even with this weird little stutter step that he used to do that looked like he was falling over when he was taking a penalty.
He's one of the first ones to do that though. Like loads of them do it now, and the one time he didn't do it was the one he missed.
Yeah, he was the first, wasn't he? I don't remember anyone doing it before him. Maybe someone did it somewhere else.
He probably picked it up. I know he wouldn't have picked it up abroad because he was here first before he went abroad. No, I don't know.
Sociedad,
yeah, but on Carragher, that's a good point. Like the only one I remember him missing was for England in the World Cup, and that's probably because he was just fucking fed up and wanted to go home.
I wasn't asked.
Yeah, but no, when he had to take them for us, how many did he take? 2, I think it was. It was only 2 in shootouts, but yeah, I totally get the sentiment.
Yeah. All right. Aldridge, man, taken 18, scored 17. Ugh, yeah, that's a bummer. That's a bummer. It was for the double as well. That one, wasn't it? The one against Wimbledon.
How about this? What if it was pod members? You needed to win a penalty shootout with.
I'm not putting my fucking life on any of those penalties.
No, you've got no choice. You've got to pick 5 from the pod.
I'll let John pick them for me.
I've got this. Go
on.
Right, I'm going number 1. Ted. Technique, skillful. He's just going to pop it in, and then I'm going to go number 2. John Gallagher, blast it straight down the middle. All right, and then I'm going to go number 3, Stu Monty, a nice mid-round sort of reliable taker. I'm going to go you number 4, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Brownie number 5.
You're not taking one yourself?
For us. No, did you know what I thought about this? And I, as much as I would probably trust my technique in normal circumstances, shit under pressure in everything in my life. I'm shit when I'm under pressure in darts. I suck. When I'm under pressure in pool, I suck. I just tend to crumble in those situations. So I definitely wouldn't be a candidate for it. Like, you know, who's a good player in that to liken myself to in that respect? Probably Mo, I guess. I'd be like, anyway. What about you?
Oh, the first three's easy. Myself, John G, Brownie, and then I'm putting you in there, despite what you've just said. And my fifth one.
I'm a left footer, maybe.
No, I'd just trust you. I think you've got a good left foot, good technique. I'd trust you above the other lads, basically. And I'll go John B. I've never seen him take a pen, but he's a Ballon d'Or winner, so that'll do for me. So, yeah. As for who to have them, I'd want least to take them. That's a toss-up between Monty and Dan. I've seen Monty take 2 pens, and both of them are still in orbit now. Circling Lovren's shot from the semi-final, Charlie Adams' pen at Wembley, and Naby's shot against Real Madrid in the Champions League final. They're all up there, circling round with the 2 pens that Monty took. And as for Dan, bless him, like, you know, Dan would be our goalkeeper in the shootout, but he wouldn't be taking a pen.
Well, he couldn't take his own goal kick, so we're not letting him take a penalty.
This is the thing, like, Chris, you wouldn't have seen this.
You're out used to take them all for him.
So when we played 11 asides, like, Dan couldn't take goal kicks, so we always used to get our Al to take the goal kicks. Right. And there was this game, and I'd like picked the team, and I'd put myself like sub, and I was coming on for the second half. So the game was just about kicking off, and I was walking round behind the goal. So the game kicks off, the ball goes out straight away. Dan's got a goal kick, and I'm walking behind the goal, and I'm looking, and I'm like, where the fuck's our Al? What's he doing? Nobody came back, and I could see the look of terror on Dan's face. He was absolutely shitting himself, and but he didn't want to say, come back and take the goal kick, because it's like, you know, it's a bit embarrassing to say it. So he just bit the bullet and he put the ball down, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, oh my god, this is not going to end well. So Dan goes to take the goal kick. It doesn't go out the box. It went about 4 yards, and he had to do the walk of shame to walk over and pick the ball up and take it back to the 6-yard box. And then I'm screaming at our Al. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Get back here and take the goal kick. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So yeah, Dan's not taking a penalty, and I'm not having Monty taking one either. Paul, I can't say you because you'd probably pull your calf.
Yeah, almost certainly.
That scream to you to Al, Dave, must have been a hell of a scream to make him hear you, considering you'd have been stood on the opposite 6-yard box waiting for a fucking...
I wasn't playing. I told you I'd named myself as a sub. I was walking behind the goal. See, if you listen, you'd have known that, but you were just desperate to get your little cheap fucking dig in, weren't you? And I couldn't hang around the 6-yard box because there was offsides.
All right. Well, you had linesmen.
No,
was that when you played at the academy? When you played Juventus?
No, this was just, I can't remember where it was. It wasn't one of the academy games. By the way, both academy games I scored, but that was my old stomping ground, wasn't it? So no surprise there.
Right. Oh my god. Fucking moving on.
I used to take penalties in the youth team. You know, I scored one.
Chris, get a grip of him, Chris. Come on.
Yeah, it's ungrippable. So this is one I like, Paul. It's from the Rake on the forum, and he said, "How has the matchday experience at Anfield changed from when you first started going to now?" And this is a really good one. I think it allows us to encapsulate a number of eras and pick up the highs and lows and the transient nature of the fan base and that kind of stuff. So, what you got on this one?
Yeah, I kind of, in some ways, I touched on this before when I was talking about the quality of the football, because on one level, it's like exponentially better than it was, and that's not. So I started going in the mid to late. So I actually started going in the double season, Kenny's first season, and then went more regularly over the rest of the decade, really. And then when I went away to university, wasn't able to go as often, and we then got into the whole seated cop season ticket waiting list, and it took me a while to be able to get back to the game regularly. But when I first started going, there was a load of lads who used to go every week, and used to go with them from time to time. And it was that whole experience of, you know, getting the train over, walking up from Sandhills, going the chippy, getting in the queue. You'd get there like hours before kick-off, line up to go in the lads' gate, 150 to get in. The whole buzz of walking onto the Kop, particularly when you're the tail end of the season, you're going for the title, and there's flags everywhere, there's inflatables getting knocked around, the songs going from 15, 20 minutes before kick-off. And I know every game wasn't like that, excuse me, but in your memory, those are obviously the things that stick out. And there was obviously some brilliant football and brilliant games in that period. But I actually think since then, the overall, as I was saying before, the overall quality and consistency of the football has got much, much higher, even though there are moments from that era that would stand with this era, no doubt. But I just think some of the football that we played under Klopp and some of the stuff that Luis Suarez was playing in that era beforehand, and those sorts of players and the level that they play at is incredible. But then the flip side of it is as well, there's a sense that it's been sanitised as well. I mean, I don't think, those stories about people pissing in other people's pockets, they're not apocryphal. That shit did happen. There was a river of piss running down the centre of the Kop every single game, which was deeply unpleasant. And it was a river. It wasn't just a little fucking trickle. And I saw lads get shoved into it. We were talking the other day about a game that got stopped or cancelled because there was an incident in the crowd. Was it Bolton maybe or somewhere?
It was Bolton.
Yeah, it was Bolton.
And excuse me, that made me remember almost every week you'd see it probably wasn't every week, but it felt like there was some old fella who was like in his 60s, some big old fat fella who was unconscious, getting passed hand over hand from the back down to the front because he'd had a heart attack. So that's pretty fucking grim, isn't it? Really, that's how someone who's in serious need needs to be helped. That you wouldn't want to go back to those things, even though you can kind of romanticize lots of elements of that time and there is nothing like the experience of standing on that Kop when there's a goal and you end up you might be there. There was times when we were there, there might have been 15 of us who were all there, from all lads I knew from school. We were all sort of stood in the same spec. The ball goes in the back of the net and you could be 25 yards further down the Kop, leaping over a complete stranger, going absolutely nuts. It might take you 5 minutes after the goal to all get back together again in the same place, and nothing will replicate that. That was absolutely incredible. But so many of the other things have just come a million miles further forward and up to date and are much, much better. I really deplore the cost side of things. I think there's so many people are. It's become a bit of a cliche, but it's a truism as well. People are financially shut out of the game. You go there, everyone that sits around me, are sort of my age or older mostly. You see a few fellas maybe in the 30s. Anyone in the 20s or younger is a rarity, really. As a regular, you don't see regulars really in the 20s or younger than that. You see the odd dad who's lucky enough to have got a pair of season tickets, and he'll bring his kid along every week, or he'll alternate between his son and his daughter. But when we used to go in the 80s, you could just rock up and you just queue up to get in on the lads' gate. The Kop was much, much younger. Like I said, there'd be times when I've been, there might have been 10, 15 of us there, all the same age, 14, 15, 16-year-old lads who all just got up together. You don't see that now. You sometimes see that, and you see younger faces, I think, when you see, not inside Anfield, inside, the away version of that. At the away games, you tend to see some younger groups of lads all stood together. And it is a shame that you can't do that anymore. Would I go back? I don't know. You can't go back, can you? And there's so much of what happened before that I wouldn't want to go back to. The violence of football back then was horrendous, and you don't see much of that now. Albeit, Jules and I saw the Sean Cox incident, but that's not a regular thing at the game. So broadly speaking, the match going experience is in a much better place than it was. But we have lost something along the way. There's no doubt about that. Would I go back? Probably not. But there are things that I really do miss, and the biggest of all is, as I said, that experience of being stood on the Kop with your mates when the ball goes in the back of the net when you're going for the title and Kenny's your manager. Fucking hell, that was something.
You can subscribe to the Liverpool Way podcast on all the major platforms, whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon or Podbean. Just search for the Liverpool Way, leave us a review and hit subscribe to automatically receive all new episodes. You can also head to liverpoolway.co.uk and grab a TLW season ticket for just £3 a month. There's tons of exclusive content, including match reports from every Liverpool game, weekly Premier League roundups, the TLW diary, and access to the members-only forum. Lastly, you can follow us on social media at The Liverpool Way on Twitter and at The Liverpool Way TLW on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, I've not really got much to add to that. I think Paul summed it up perfectly there, really. One thing that I do remember from back then that I feel like it would be quite easy for us to bring back, and I do think it's like it would be good, is before kick-off and every player got the name sung. Like that somewhere along the line, like we've lost that and it doesn't happen, and that was great. It was like, and I don't think you can blame that on the fact that it's not a standing cop anymore. I don't think it's that specifically.
Because that happened
does make
when
a
I never
difference.
went on the standing cop. So that was routine in the mid to late 90s when I started going regularly.
Yeah, I think it makes a bit of a difference in terms of not everybody's in the seat, like 10 minutes before kick-off when the players are like, because they used to come out and they'd just be kicking the ball around for like a good few minutes. Even that doesn't really happen now. It's like they have the stupid like lining up, shaking hands, and then like they go to both ends, and it's like really quick. The coin toss. One of the players is kicking about with the mascots, and everyone else is just walking around like high-fiving each other, whatever. And it's that's not the same. And I think as that's crept in, it's coincided with like the chanting the players' names sort of dying off as well. Plus the fact half the team now haven't even got a song, which is another issue, you know, that needs sorting. But again, the thing with that is like they have actually got songs. It's just they're not getting sung on the cop. You know, you see like in the fan parks and stuff, and like lads on the coaches with different songs. So songs do exist for these players, but you just never hear them in the stadium for some reason.
That's a relatively new thing, though, isn't it? That I think it's like mainly like we'd expect like our new players to have pretty decent songs by now.
Yeah.
In most eras, really, but that, you know, especially under Klopp, when you know we've got the benefit of social media and the European aways and stuff where they're really prominent. So I don't really know what the solution to that is.
I wonder if that's a.
Remember when Klopp had to ask the fans to come up with a song for the player? Was it Bobby? I remember Klopp saying something like, you know, this player really deserves a song, and then like...
Or Sadio, I don't know.
I think it was Bobby, you know, before like,
the
Bobby song took off.
I was just thinking about what Chris said there about so many of these new players. I just wonder if it is slightly a timing thing with some of them, because we've had, over a 2-year period, quite a lot of new players all come at once, and it's coincided with a bit of a drab, disappointing period as well in terms of the football that we were playing. It was almost like it's almost like the change of the guard in terms of eras that suddenly sort of happened very, very quickly and unexpectedly. And I think those songs come out of big moments and big games in big seasons, don't they? It comes out of excitement, and there's still time for that to happen. You know, I still feel this season we could really have that a really exciting run in, you know, in a few competitions. You know, I'm still hoping maybe we could have a few like greet the coach moments, you know, as we get to the latter stages of Europe or the league or both. And I think those are the times when, you know, when players have a big moment in those kinds of games, and you get wins unexpectedly, or you get big goals and at crucial points. Those are the sorts of things that inspire some of those songs. But I mean, it is disappointing that so many of them don't have them. You know, and it's not really for me. It's not really for me to sit here and say I can't really criticise and say, oh, well, I have criticised and said that there doesn't seem to be the joy and the bounce in some of the songs. But there's a Curtis one that's going around, and it's a good idea, like, but it doesn't quite, for me, click. It hasn't quite got the full bounce that you want. It's based on the last tune, and the lyrics aren't quite right. But the gem of something is there. But what it needs to get going and played around with at the game, and Curtis to score a couple of good goals, and everyone goes nuts and get it going. That's what will really cement those things. So I think it is a little bit linked with the football as well.
The Luis Diaz one's got a good bit of bounce to it. Like I don't know, that one hasn't taken off. Really don't know. I think that's good, and it's lively.
He has been playing very well.
I know, but then that's even more reason. That's even more reason to do it. Like, remember the other week? This is it's quite funny when you look back on it now, because he's playing well at the last couple of games. Looks like he's turned the corner. It wasn't that long ago he was sat on the bench crying after being subbed. Yeah. And then the game after that, I think it was, he was better. So that feels like a turning point for him. But like, I do think that that song should be like ringing out around Anfield, because it's one that'll get everyone going. And as Paul said, a lot of them are kind of downbeat and dreary, and they haven't got that like uplifting bounce to them, which gets a whole stadium like rocking. So yeah, the Diaz one, I don't know why that's not taken off. And just reinvent the Suarez one for Darwin.
Yeah,
That's another thing. It's like such an obvious thing to do.
And that did get going to start with, didn't it? And then it just fell away again. I've heard that song in Anfield.
No, but they done it for Diaz, didn't they? And
was it Diaz?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work
Yeah,
for
it
Diaz.
was
It was like
Diaz,
it was desperation, because like the stuff was going on with his dad. It was like, oh, we need to chant something for Diaz, and they just kind of shoehorn that one in. It doesn't work as well. It should be Darwin's song now. Chris, you can ask Suarez at the press conference if he's all right with us passing his song down to his boy.
That's right.
I'm sure he would be. I mean, he's the heir apparent.
No, that was me.
If there's one thing I could bring back to the matchday experience at Anfield, and it's kind of considered a bit wool and like lame to do it now, but the scarves on the cop, I think it would be nice to bring that back. It looks fucking ace, and it's a nice connection with the past that's easy to maintain amid all the other changes around us. So, people
what do
don't
you mean,
necessarily
like the
wear them
twirling
anymore.
of them, like?
No, like the "You'll Never Walk Alone."
Oh right,
scarves.
yeah. I thought you meant like Ring of Fire and everyone twirling the scarves.
But that's a byproduct of that as well, and everybody having wearing a scarf to the game. It's a winter sport, so and I know it's considered a bit lame to be wearing colours now, and you mark yourself out as a bit of a, I don't know, bit of a wool or a bit of a whatever you want to call it. But I think it's cool, and it'd be good to see it back.
Yeah, I think they are as well.
All right, fair enough. So let's move on then. This is a good question from Total Longo. I'll come to you first on this one, Dave. Given the unexpected position of the team and the sheer number of worthy candidates, who has been the player of the season up to this point?
I change on this from week to week. Like, I would have said Alisson, and then recently I'm thinking Trent might be our best player the way he's played this season. But is that recency bias? Was he playing this well earlier on in the season? I don't know. Virgil's been like really, really good all season. Everyone else has had the moments, like maybe not consistently great. So it's like people will say Mo as well, and I don't want to be down on Mo, but I feel like Mo's numbers are much better than the eye test. Like I'm not.
All right, Stu.
No, but I'm not getting. I'm just saying when I see people saying he's been our best player, I'm like, I don't think he has. I think he's had like loads of performances where he's done me head in, but then the next week he scores and he gets the winner and stuff. So I think Mo's having a good season, but I don't think he's having a great season. And I think Virgil's having a great season. I tell you who else is having a great season, but he doesn't play often enough, like to compare him with Virgil, for example. Canate, I think he's a fucking great player, and I don't think like he gets the not so much from our fans. I just think nationally, I don't think people are onto how fucking great he is. They're going on about like Saliba at Arsenal, but Canate gets picked for France ahead of him. There's a reason for that. But it's just that, he's not playing twice a week. We're having to be careful with him at times. But Kanate's having a great season when he's being fit. But I'm going to say Virgil, I think.
Okay. Paul?
Chris, what was Phil's exact question? Was it best or most important player, best player? Is there a distinction?
Player of the season up to this point.
Player of the season, okay. Yeah. So I'm like Dave. I've been around. I mean, I've been around the houses on this, and I think the players in my mind are Mo, Virgil, Trent, Alisson, Joe Gomez, and Curtis Jones. They're the ones in my head. I think the player who's probably done the most breathtaking things is Trent.
Yeah.
The player who has probably got us the most points is Mo. The player whose overall contribution has probably been most instrumental in terms of galvanising the team is Virgil, his captaincy, his return to form, his imperiousness at the back. So it's a really hard one to answer at this stage of the season. I would put Joe G and Alisson slightly below that, and Curtis as well. But one of the things I would say about Curtis is I genuinely, honestly think like he could be fucking like everything. I think he could be absolutely ridiculously good. And I feel a little bit alone on that platform. Like, I know he's becoming increasingly more rated by lots of people, but I just look at some of the stuff he's starting to do now. You know, some of the absolute. I mean, the way he took the piss out of
Ben Shite.
Ben Shite, that's right. And then who did he kind of like ping the ball around in his own area the other day? Oh, my mind is so shit. I can picture the move. He pulled this outrageous move the other day. It's gone. I won't remember. But he's just. I just think he's so talented. But what we're seeing now is the application and the intelligence aligned with that. But I think to come back to the question, for me it's between Mo, Virgil and Trent, and I find it hard to separate. At this stage, I'm going to say Mo, because I think those goals and those assists have got us to the top of the table in a more obvious way than anyone else has got us there in a team sport. So Mo, I'm going to say Mo.
I would say Mo as well for exactly the same reasons. Plus, you know, you're saying, Dave, he hasn't necessarily passed the eye test in terms of how well he's been playing. Neither is the team really for being top of the league. So true. I don't criticise him for that. I think the other factor to consider, even though he might not have been like Paul, you mentioned Joe Gomez in terms of how important he has been to us, just in terms of the number of roles he's had to fulfil and how accomplished he's been in all of them. In my book, he gets extra credit for that. So I'd have him right up there as well.
He'd be in my top 5.
Nice.
He's even playing midfield now. He played fucking midfield now.
On the quiet, he's becoming the new James Milner, isn't he?
Yeah.
Top of the lactate test of the summer as well after Millie went. Mm-hmm. He is becoming able to switch positions and play at a really high level in every one of them. And he's still only 26. He's not quite 27 yet. Nice. Fucking brilliant. Really good player.
Okay, so Paul, hold on. Man with the Stick on the forum asked, what is the minimum requirement for this season for it to be defined as a good one?
Well, I suppose for me it's about context, really. And you know, before we went into the season, with the amount of change, we just had to be back in the Champions League. And, you know, if you're talking minimums, that is the minimum for me. We just need to be back in the Champions League. I think we'll comfortably achieve that. So if we're talking now, really,
that now.
So if we're talking now, I think we've moved a little bit beyond that. But what we're talking about now is not the minimum. This is now what I think we can actually achieve.
What would you be disappointed with though? If what would we need to do to make you?
I will be disappointed if we don't finish top 2 and win a trophy.
Yeah, same. 2 trophies,
I think we need to. Well, I just think winning a trophy is there's always an element of winning a cup. There's an element of the lottery about it because it always comes down to key moments. And sometimes you get a player sent off, you can have a bad injury, you know, like Mo in the Champions League final.
True.
You can have something like that can happen, and that just kind of can take it away from you, and it's beyond your control, really. Sometimes it's just call it luck, call it fate, call it whatever. Even though I don't believe in those things, you know, you can just have some freak occurrence and it takes it away from you. But I think I think we can go pretty much all the way in all 4 competitions that we're in, and if we finish any lower than second in the league from this stage, I'll be pretty gutted. Like, even though I felt we were going to finish second from the word go, but I thought it was going to be much more tortuous getting there. And even though we're now currently top. I think there was more. Second was said more in hope than conviction. Although I was mindful of the experience and quality of players that remained at the club, I did think we've got some absolute winners there that Arsenal haven't got, and I did feel that they would be significant. But I didn't expect us to be so decisively, you know, ahead of where I expected us to be at this stage. So yeah. Top 2 and a trophy. That would be my minimum from this point.
Dave, you said you pretty much agreed with that, but you want a second trophy in terms of just for it to be defined as a good season.
Yeah, but Paul kind of swayed me on that a little bit, like because I think we should win the League Cup. I'd be disappointed if we don't win the League Cup now.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking the Europa League, but as you said. Things can happen, you know, we could have like a freakish game where we hit the bar 4 times and we get a player sent off. You know, so something could happen that means we don't win that. And I wouldn't be disappointed that we haven't won it because I wouldn't be like holding it against anyone if we didn't win it. That's probably the better way to say that. But I do think a realistic expectation is 2 trophies and a minimum of second. Still got a chance of first. We'll see how that plays out. But expectations now are totally different to expectations at the start of the season, because we've done so well. We've put ourselves in this position. So your expectations are going to change as a result of that. So what would have been a successful season back in August is now not necessarily a successful season, because we've done so well. So yeah, I think top 2 and 1 trophy, but I do think realistically we could be getting 2. We're still in the FA Cup as well. We've knocked Arsenal out, so who knows? Could be a cup treble. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the field's going to thin after that 4th round of the FA Cup, because I think there's like 4 or 5 all Premier League ties again or something like that. So half of the teams are going to be gone.
West Ham went out tonight.
Yeah, and that's not, that's without the proviso of more upsets. Since the start of the season, I've always thought that Europa League was a really good target for us this year. Get that in the bank, complete the set for Kloppo. I would be more than happy to consider that a good season to win that and qualify for the Champions League in whatever position that ends up in the top 4. I think that's that in terms of minimum requirement. I'm still on the board with that. I don't care. I mean, as long as we're back in, really. If we win first,
the Europa
it doesn't matter whether we're anyway. Exactly, but if we're not first in the league, I don't necessarily care too much in terms of our overall development, whether we finish 2nd, 3rd, 4th or 5th. Like, as long as we're back in that tournament, that's fine with me. Of course, I want to win the league, and we'll get onto this with our next question, but we've already reached the point now where it's mid-January, and we're top of the league, and we will be gutted if it doesn't happen again now. So, but in terms of minimum requirements, Champions League, Europa League, anything else from there on is a really, really nice bonus. So, Dave, come to you first on this one. Addy Dazzlers on Twitter asked, we have a strong and fairly deep squad. Can we win the league without any new signings?
Yes, and we'll have to, because I don't think we'll be signing anybody. But like my view on this now is I don't really want us to sign anybody. I think unless like someone who you're planning on getting in the summer becomes available now and you think it makes sense to do it now rather than wait, that's fine. But I don't think we need to do that. I mean, we've got so many injuries, and yet we're still putting out a strong team every week, even with all these injuries. So we've got all of those players to come back. So I don't think you can buy players because, like, for argument's sake, we're not going to do this now because Robbo and Costas are coming back. But I don't think you can go and buy a left back because you've got 2 left backs out injured. I don't think it works like that. You have to put your faith in the third choice, which is going to be like promising kid. You can't just buy players because you've got injuries. It's not something that we've done anyway.
There's a follow-up question that we should touch on here at the same time, because Terry on Twitter asked if Bradley carries on well and playing well in the absence of Trent, would you put Trent in midfield and leave Bradley where he is? That also plays into the fact of whether we should sign a right back, which is something that we have previously on this podcast talked about needing.
Yeah, I didn't want a right back because I said Joe Gomez is fine. That was before we'd seen how good Bradley was, so definitely not. As for whether he should keep his place, I don't think it's that black and white. I think it depends on, like, it's horses for courses, isn't it? Like, maybe for certain games when you're needing to rest people or whatever, it's an option to have. It's a good option to have, but I wouldn't be doing it full time. And hopefully he does do well enough to give you a decision to make, but I don't think it's going to be a case of, he plays every game now and Trent's in midfield. But maybe now and again we might do it.
I've seen enough of Bradley now to know we don't need a right back. Like, I just, the small bit we've seen already of just, you're a real talented player. What I would say is, in answer to T's question, is I think we're in a title race, and I think it's too soon for him in a title race. Now, you could argue Trent came in a title race at 18, but we didn't win it the first time he was in there. So I think it is a little bit early. What I do like the idea of at some stages, I would like to see, I don't think I probably will see this at all, and certainly not this season, as I would just like to see Bradley at right back and Trent in Dom's position as the right hand 8. And I know there's all sorts of reasons to say, you take away Trent hitting passes from deeper and what that gives you. But I also think you might see something else with Trent marauding in and around the goal and little link-ups and all sorts of other little jiggery pokery and tricks that he could pull off up there. I'd like to see that. But in terms of Bradley getting a run and Trent moving into midfield, no, not for me. Not when we're going for the title.
Plus, he's got to get past Gomez. He's got to get past Gomez
of course,
first. It's not just Trent.
Yeah.
Because when the left backs are back, you're going to be looking at Joe Gomez as next in line at right back. So I think it's a great problem to have if Bradley really shines in the next couple of weeks. Well, we don't know how long Trent's going to be out. We're hoping it's what they said, but wouldn't be surprised if it was longer. You know,
I mean, on your point about the signing, Dave, I absolutely agree with the point that you made about, we've got 2 left backs out. You don't go and sign another one. You bring the kid through and then you use a utility player and all of that. I mean, that's why they brought Owen Beck back from his loan. Whether he'll play or not, I don't know, but that's why they brought him back, and that's one of the reasons why you have a youth development system and why at Liverpool we take youth development very, very, very seriously. I think Klopp, just as an aside, is probably the best. Well, he is the best elite manager in the world for youth development, no doubt about it. Super brave, super talented at bringing those kids through. And that's what that's for. And I don't want us to be signing players when we've got the likes of Owen Beck and Conor Bradley and people like that coming through. They should be getting opportunities. Otherwise, your whole system falls apart if players don't see a potential route through. I can't really move away from the idea that I still feel one's a left-sided centre-half. I don't think we're going to do it. I don't think the title will be contingent on that, probably. Just worries me a little bit. I just can't shake the idea that we're one more injury away from a massive crisis at the back, and that would really piss me off if a title race was derailed because of injury. But we shouldn't do something for doing its sake. We should only do it if we've got an absolute top-class option, and that, for me, would have to be a young player, and probably homegrown for those quotas.
Branthwaite, whenever you go under.
Yeah, your boy at Everton, Dave.
We'll get to that in a minute.
And the only other thought as well is I just coming back, and again I'm just agreeing with Dave really and just expanding the points a little bit further. If there's someone that you might want to get maybe in the summer, in the future, and you can bring it forward, the player who, even though I'm all in on the give Mo a new contract bandwagon, by the way, Chris, that you started back in the summer, but I'm also of the view that if we can get somebody really boss now, who can come through in that position as well, doesn't hurt to have more goals in the team when you're up against City.
Been I don't think that's going this week.
Yeah, Elise, and then there's a couple of also a lad from is he playing in Portugal right now? My mind's gone blank. I had to quit watching him as well.
Probably if really we're trying to sign him.
Yeah, but I don't, whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. But I just think if we're going to do anything, I'd do that. But it's not. I wouldn't be doing deals for the sake of doing deals. It's got to be. I've always been happy with FSG's transfer strategy. I've never had a problem with it. The only time it bothers me is when we've got a proper crisis and they don't do something then. And by do something, what I mean is maybe pay slightly over the odds to bring forward a deal that they were planning to do at some point in the future. I think they're just too wedded to the value thing. I'm quite happy for them to wait for the right player. I've got no problem with that. What I don't think they do when they need to sometimes is to say, ER Club X, we value him at this. You're saying if you're going to give him to us now, you want that, so we will do that for the sake of expediency. That's my only quibble around what they do transfer-wise. Other than that, I'm absolutely sound with it. So, and I think you're right, Dave. I don't think we're going to see much.
Would you know what's something worth thinking about though on that? Just especially in light of what's been going on recently, and it was something that Linda said last week in his press conference when he said something about how much money we spent in the summer, and I'm like, maybe there's FFP things involved here as well, where like there's not money to spend in January because we just don't know, do we? We're not accountants. We don't know what the situation is.
No, it's true.
Maybe we can't spend anything in January, not anything significant anyway. So they are.
So is that be assuming that the Caicedo, they knew the Caicedo thing was never going to come off, and it was a chance act all along?
No, maybe if
the money was there.
Yeah, but what they spent afterwards. So after we didn't get him, we spent 30 whatever on Gravenberch. We spent on Endo as well. Plus, it's the whole. Again, I don't want to get into all this accountancy bollocks, but like amortization over contracts, all of that stuff. We don't know. We don't know how much money would be there to stay FFP compliant. I don't know. But I just think when you see what's happening with other teams at the moment, you can kind of see why we've had the approach that we've always had. and it's it's
Yeah.
sensible, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. I mean, the trouble that Newcastle are in, Arsenal need a striker and they can't afford one. Chelsea, yeah. Oh, and also just a quick one. I'm not trying to be picky. I just think we just need to get our terminology right now. It's PSR now in the Premier League, isn't it, rather than FFP?
Yeah.
That's the new terminology now. We all need to start talking that language. I tend to think of FFP as well, but it's profit and sustainability rules, which as we were chatting before we came on, Dave, John Cross tweeted today. It's the club's own rules. They've been in place for years. Yeah. People now seeing their arse about the rules that have been in place in the competition for a long time, and they wrote them because they're members of the Premier League. They're written by the clubs for the clubs.
Yeah.
There's only one thing I'd want to add about the signings and falling back too heavily on some of the young prospects who are bringing through the likes of Bradley and Quansah. And I'm not sure this has been talked about yet, but I think we are also seeing some sort of trend of the young prospects that we have coming through, coming a cropper to injury. So I'd be very careful with Bradley. I'd be more careful with Bradley than we have been with some of the other young players. I'd be very careful with Quansah as well, because you just don't know when you're going to break these lads. They're in really important parts in their development. The intensity that they have in training every day is incredible, let alone the match days. And you look at some of the young lads who've come in and have
Bajcetic
come
has been out for
across.
ages, hasn't he?
Bajcetic is the most... Ben Doak, Cade Gordon, Ramsey.
Gordon.
The amount of players who've come through the system and had
that's a good point.
Really damaging long-term injuries that have put breaks in their development. So I'd be very sort of skeptical about Connor Bradley keeping his place in the team, for instance, for that reason. I just think we need to be more careful than we have been. Same with Quansah as well, being an absolute regular. We just don't want to break these lads. And at the moment,
do you know as well, Chris,
multiple examples of us breaking them.
Some of those players actually get a little bit out of sight, out of mind, don't they? And they will be factors in us not signing as well. Yeah. We've just mentioned about 5 players there that the club will have high hopes for, which have not been in or around the first team for ages. So they will not be unless they've come to a conclusion that those players are fundamentally broken, in which case they'll be moving them on. But they will not be wanting to block the passage of those players either. So they will be part of their future squad development and transfer planning as well. So yeah, it's easy to forget those sorts of players. Particularly Bajcetic, who I think hopefully will be back this season.
There's a difference though, like Bajcetic, Ben Doak, Cade Gordon went from like youth team to first team, whereas Connor Bradley was on loan in League One, played the full season in League One last year. He's a bit older as well. I think he's 20, 21.
Quansah did that as well.
Quansah had a season at Bristol Rovers as well. So they've played men's football, whereas you go from youth football and it's like it's the really talented kids who can jump from youth team to first team at Liverpool. There's not many can do that. You got to be like an exceptional talent. Most of them need to go like the route of like under 21 loan, and then maybe come back like Bradley and Quansah have done. It's the really young, but even because Harvey had that season on loan. He was with the first team. Then he had a season on loan, didn't he?
It's your Trents and your Curtises, isn't it?
Yeah. But look at Curtis. Look at all like the problems Curtis has had injury wise. So
yeah, true.
Curtis is another good example of that. Like he's suffered with injuries from going from like youth team to playing for Liverpool. It's a big jump physically. But
and growing pains stuff as well, isn't it? Stevie had a bit of that as well.
Yeah. Growing pains is like a natural thing, but Connor Bradley's probably past that point now, hopefully, and he has got like a full season at Bolton under his belt. Yeah. Whereas Ramsey is still suffering, isn't he? Ramsey's just had like one thing after another.
So who did I come to first on the last question? I want to make sure I share this around a bit. It was you, wasn't it, Dave?
It was me, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad this is not you then, because it's related to your boy Darwin, and it continues with the theme of what will need to happen in order for us to be successful and perhaps even win the league. Stu Monty, he's a pod contributor, but he's in this instance he's a listener. So he asked, do we need Nunez to click this season to be successful, click in inverted commas, or could we still win the league with his current output? Darwin click, and then I think we're favourites for the league. And he also said he's currently on 0.97 goals and assists per 90 minutes. Goal plus XA is 0.71 for a slightly truer reflection of quality. I don't know what that means. 0.81
assist,
expected assist. Yeah. Goal plus expected assist. Okay. 0.81 goal creating actions. He's 7th in the league. Most shots on target in the division. Essentially, without clicking, the output is right up there. Scary if he kicks on. So, in your mind, Paul, is it necessary for... I think basically what Stu's saying is, do the goals need to start flying in if we're going to be successful this season?
I really haven't changed my position from the last time I talked about Darwin on the previous pod, in that I kind of now in my mind I accept Darwin for what he is, with the hope, if not expectation, although there is a little bit of expectation, that there will be a click at some point. So, to answer the question, can we win the league if he doesn't click? Yes, I think we can. It's far more desirable that he does click, obviously. You know, we've got to this point, we're more than halfway through the season. We played the same number of games as Manchester City, with Darwin playing as he's played, and we're top. So quite clearly we can win the league. I do think, though, that City are going to start moving through the gears. It's a little bit ominous that pair of dickheads came back from injury at the weekend. Oh no, sorry, De Bruyne did. The other one. Actually, he's not a dickhead, De Bruyne. I like De Bruyne.
No,
but
the other
dickhead isn't back yet, and he will be back. I think that's a little bit ominous. So I think we are going to need to find something else, probably, to keep us ahead of them. And that something else might be the crowd at Anfield when they come to us. It might be the bounce of the ball. But I think what we're going to have to be doing is turning some of those draws from the first half of the season into wins, and that is inevitably going to mean goals. And if you're looking for where more goals can come from, you know, the obvious answer, I guess, is Darwin. So, yeah, to summarise, I don't think he has to click for us to win, but I think it's likely that it's far better for us if he does. And I think if he does click, if he starts producing the numbers, the goals to reflect that all that expected goal nonsense that Stu was quoting there, then I think, yeah, he's right. I think we will comfortably win the league, because the number of chances he's getting every single game are huge. If he turns some of that fraction of those into goals, we're going to be battering teams. We're going to be winning every week, basically, if he starts scoring in the way that he should be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that keys us into another question, Dave, from Monster Mash, about a lot of people were quite down this weekend seeing De Bruyne come back and make two telling contributions to win a game that they were struggling in with 20 minutes to go when he comes on the field, and he sort of just transforms it. And I think a lot of us are now kind of expecting them to go on this familiar run where they reel off 15 to 20 wins, and us to have to match them to stand any chance. Like, do you see a Darwin kick on as something that can be instrumental in preventing that? And what else do you think it would take for us to sort of win the title? And if so, would it be Klopp's greatest ever achievement?
Lot to get through there.
Yeah, sorry.
On the City, De Bruyne coming back is obviously massive for them. Not great for us. Blobfish is coming back soon as well, so that's not good either. We can't really worry too much about what they're going to do, because when you look at the fixtures they've got coming up, the Newcastle game was probably the toughest game they had, and that was like the main hope that they might drop something in that game. They almost did. Unfortunately, they never. And the run that they've got now is like they're just playing like a load of shit teams. So don't expect them to drop too many more points before we play them. So that just means we've got to take care of our own business. Yeah, we can win the league with Darwin doing what he's doing now, but it'll be a hell of a lot easier for us if he does start scoring more. And I'm saying scoring more, I'm not saying he's got to do too much different, because I maintain what I said last time. A lot of it recently has been bad luck. Klopp even said that after the last game. I just think that's got to turn around at some point. I'm not talking about like the bad misses, the sitters and stuff. That's on him. A lot of the other stuff is just law of averages, just fucking screwing him over. If that settles down, he will score more goals. But if he does actually click, as Stu said, then we'll take some stopping, because we've done so well without him scoring that many goals. So yeah, if he can get more goals, that gives us our best chance. Whether we'll be able to do it or not, I just the thing that bothers me, and I said this like at the start of the season, what worries me more than Man City is the fucking referees. Man City just don't get the shitty decisions that everyone else gets. And I mean everyone else. Like, Man United can point to bad decisions they've had. Okay, they've had like a lot the other way as well. Arsenal are always complaining about stuff, like decisions have gone... Everyone's got like a beef about decisions that have gone against them, except for them. And I don't get it. It's like, it's mad. How are they not getting like fucked over the way everyone else is? And it's like, it's been going on for years. You'd think that with all the shit that's going on, the Premier League would want them not winning anything because of how embarrassing it is. So it comes down to the Premier League obviously can't influence PGMOL, and they're just a law to themselves. But that worries me more than anything. Is it's not even decisions that go against us. I'm not worried about the decisions in our games as such. I just wish it was a level playing field and City was subjected to the same level of shit that everyone else has to deal with, because that just never happens. Even at the weekend, I didn't watch the game, I just heard everyone saying like Rodri was on a booking and he was just descent the whole time, and he's like immune to second yellow cards. It's absolutely, he's definitely got Fernandinho's fucking immunity from like a second yellow card. He can literally do whatever the fuck he wants and he'll never get a second yellow card. But that's the frustrating thing for me, is they just never are on the wrong end of these controversial decisions. So that makes it so much tougher for us. And the big thing that's just like looming over me, and I've been thinking about it a lot this week, I can't shake it, is if we miss out by like a point or something and we're going to be looking back at that Tottenham game, I just don't know what I'll do.
Fucking hell, don't.
I don't know how you come back from that.
You just have to have a different perspective on it, like you have with all the other 1 point games that you've not dragged up, but held onto down the years, because you just have to consider the fact that you just have to consider the fact that there's a whole new reality from the end of every game that changes the future for all concerned. So, like, you're looking at a reality that doesn't exist from the point that if we win that Tottenham game or get a draw or whatever, just you can't keep doing that to yourself, because you're creating a whole new timeline as soon as that game's over.
I get that
with a million different permutations. So it's
the multiverse, Dave.
Yeah, I've watched enough like Star Trek and that to realise that. I do get it, but this is not like us fucking up at Leicester. You know, this is like it's different, and that's why it would just be.
It's a clear injustice, isn't it?
Yeah, and it goes back to this is exactly why. When it happened, it should have been a replay. It's too late for any of that shit now, but at the time, that's why it should have been, because it's an asterisk over the whole season now. Hopefully the Premier League see that. Well, hopefully the Premier League are like, you know what, put pressure on PGMOL, say, you need to fuck Man City over. We can't have them winning the league, especially on the back of what you fucking did in that Tottenham game.
Yeah.
Do you know on the...
I read...
Sorry,
Paul, go ahead.
Just on the bit of that, because I think he tagged on a little bit of something I put on Twitter there, Chris, about the would it be Klopp's greatest achievement, and I think it would be.
It would, yeah.
It would be. I just think from where things ended last season, how despondent we all were, you know, and that was on the back of missing out on the quadruple by, you know, the skin of our teeth the season before, to sort of be almost completely pull a new team out of the woodwork in a typical Klopp fashion, in a way, you know, by sort of bringing kids through and by signing completely unfancied players from the Bundesliga and by playing like a Premier League player in a different position, and brave footy, and to just go from where we finished last season, how shit everything was, to winning the title against this cheating juggernaut would just be like off the charts, absolutely off the charts. By far his biggest
achievement, I'd say.
Yeah, it would, yeah.
All right. There are a couple more questions about all of the stuff that's been around this week about the profit and sustainability rules, to use the correct parlance for a change. But we've also got a League Cup semi-final coming up. I think it might be a week from tonight or a week from tomorrow, against Fulham. And somebody, let me just see who it is. Lost it. Anyway, whoever it was, I've got it written down here, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh, I hear it. It's Mega Drive Man on the forum said, considering that the EFL semi-final is in the balance, Paul, I'll come to you first on this one. Would you be inclined to start Alisson in goal for that game and then give Kelleher the FA Cup game a few days later?
Yeah. And I think, haven't we got form for this? Didn't Klopp do this in one of the competitions a couple of seasons ago?
He did.
Didn't he do it?
He said Alisson needed the game time because we'd had a bit of a break.
Yeah. And and whatever reason he gives for it, he can call it whatever he wants. But if we're going for the trophies, I'm sorry, you put the best player in there. But they won't have it. There won't be a contractual obligation to Queeve. I don't think it'll be like Klopp has said to him, "This is what we're going to do." And if Klopp is the fella I think he is, he'll have allowed himself a little bit of wriggle room there, because this is the guy who won't promise players time when he's wanting to sign them. Some managers will promise a player they'll play him, and he won't make that promise. So I don't think he'll have made promises. So yeah, for me, you put the best keeper in there. I want to win that trophy. And I think Queeve has wobbled a bit this season. By the way, I'm not yet prepared to write Queeve off, by the way, as being a great talent. I think he has had a wobbly season, but we've got to remember, he still hasn't played. I think he's only played, 30 games for Liverpool or something like that. He's still young in goalkeeping terms. But for me, no, if there's a chance to win a trophy, you get the big man in there. It makes all the difference.
Yeah. Dave, are you going along with that?
No, I'm not going along with it. Not what I would do, but I just don't think there's any way he doesn't play Kelleher.
Oh, I thought we were asking what I would do. I'm not sure what Klopp would do, but I would certainly play.
Would you be inclined? That was the question.
Right, no.
I'm not sure what Klopp would do, but I would definitely do.
It would depend on what I'd told Kelleher. If I'd said to him, "This is your cup," and I'm sure Klopp has referenced that before, where he said this is his competition. There was that one example when, I don't know if that was the FA Cup though, you know, Paul.
I can't remember, Dave. No idea.
Was it? Didn't he play Alisson in the FA Cup against Man City? Did Queeve play in the FA Cup final, or did Alisson play in the FA Cup final?
No, Alisson played in the semi-final for sure against Man City.
But did he play against Chelsea?
No.
So then, Queeve had both cup competitions that year, and Alisson was brought in against Man City. Then, if that's the case.
No, I meant no. Alisson did play in the FA Cup. That's what I meant, and I think he played against City in the semi as well.
But Queeve played in the final against Chelsea. He was brought back in. So
yeah, because he scored a penalty, didn't he?
Yeah, and he made a couple of good saves during the game as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just think if you've said to him you're playing in this cup, then you pick him, and that goes for the final as well. And I would be staggered if he doesn't play. Now the FA Cup's a different matter, and I think it's a great question, and it's also like you could kind of pacify him a bit by saying, okay, you're not playing in this, but you're going to play in the FA Cup. But then what do you do for the final? If you've told Kelleher this is his cup, he's going to play, I feel like you need to see that through and keep picking him. So that being the case, now if that's not the case and it's just being treated on a game-by-game basis, then you could bring Alisson in, but I don't think there's any way that happens. I think that's not Klopp's. He's a man of his word, isn't he? You know, and he's
brave, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got that relationship with players, and that if he's told Kelleher this is your competition, he'll play him, and it wouldn't matter if we were playing Man City in the final or the semi-final. I think he would just play him anyway.
Right, fair enough. Paul, this is another good one from John B, another podcast participant turned listener in this case. He's asking. Ballon d'Or, yeah, indeed. We should just start calling him John Ballon d'Or instead of John B. That's what the B stands for. He said, "What would your first choice 11 be?" And he puts the emphasis on your as a throwback to the last question. What would your first choice 11 be if we had a cup final tomorrow, providing that everybody is fit?
Ali, Trent, Ibu, Verge, Robbo. I think that's just absolutely nailed on.
Yeah.
Dom, Endo, Curtis. I think there might be some controversies in there. Mo, Darwin, Diaz.
Great.
I just feel I think Dom. I think there are question marks over. I mean, for me, Curtis is the form midfielder for us this season. Curtis has to play. He sets the tempo. He sets the pace. He's getting classier. He's adding goals. He's adding assists. Curtis has to play for me. I think Endo gives us a solidity that no one else gives us, and without compromising the front foot stuff. And Dom, there is a question mark over Dom, really, in that he's, slid back quite away from the heights that he hit early doors. So really, he's in there more on potential rather than current form. And I think Maka probably can consider himself unlucky not to play. I think if Maka had played further forward, I'd seen him play further forward more this season, Maka might be an over Dom in that position, but I think he's probably only played there once or twice. Not seen enough of him there. So yeah, and in terms of the forward line, well, Mo's obvious. I think probably Diaz, particularly as he's coming back into form, is obvious. And Darwin, it's just that thing, the point that we've all made and Dave has hammered. He just makes things happen, whether he's scoring or not, and opponents don't like him, don't like playing him. So I think Darwin would have to start for me. So yeah, that's my 11.
Mine's the same team, except I'm having Maka over Endo. Other than that, same.
So why, Dave? What's the distinction for you between going for Maka over Endo?
I don't think there's much to choose from them. Like choose between them based on how they've played. And I think Maka's just got that little bit of extra quality where he can play a defence split and pass or something. I know Endo's got the edge defensively, but we're a front foot team. I'm going to pick the attacking option over the defensive option. So yeah, I'd be going with Maka, but I don't feel like desperately strongly about it. I don't think it's an egregious choice. You put an Endo in there, but yeah, I'm taking Maka. But everything else the same. You could argue Jota on the left maybe, but I like Jota coming off the bench. So
yeah, that was in my mind as well. Yeah,
I'm going Jota through the middle with Darwin on the left.
Ooh, no Diaz.
Jota taking no Diaz. No, he hasn't shown me enough quite yet to show that it's going to be sustainable. If I'm picking it, if we had, what's John's?
Yeah,
we had a cup final tomorrow. I want Jota on the end of the chances, and I actually really like Darwin on the left. I think he can be more involved in the game that way as well. Like I think he's more creative from that position rather than sort of, sometimes the game can pass him by a little bit when he's up to the centre, and especially as well when Robbo comes back, there's a real opportunity to build something there too. With those two, in the way that Robbo can overlap and the way that Darwin can then cut inside and show what he can do on his right foot from there. So I'd agree with you on having McAllister in the six ahead of Endo, but there would very much be a horses for courses situation as well, depending on who we were playing in that final. So it's difficult. But I think the one thing that I would be, I think the question is tomorrow, so it would be Trent at right back. But I'm a little bit along with you, Paul, in that I wouldn't mind seeing like Gomez at right back full time and then seeing Trent actually pushed into midfield full time and what that looks like, because we haven't really seen, we've seen it to close a lot of games, but not necessarily what it looks like from the start. So it's just something that I have in my mind about going whole hog with it and remaining really solid at the back. And given how well Gomez has done it right back when called upon, and how well we've done late in games when that switch has been made. Yeah. Just something to think about, I think, but probably not if we had a cup final tomorrow.
But you know what makes that easier to say though? It's the way Dom's been playing. If Dom was playing now the way he was at the start of the season, I don't think we'd be even bothered about, do we put Trent in midfield? We wouldn't need to, because Dom looks so great. Because he's fallen off and Trent's gone into midfield and done well, it is something to think about. And because Gomez has been brilliant at fullback, so it is like definitely discussion worthy at this point. And I suppose it comes down to if it was getting played tomorrow. I mean, I know Robbo's not fit if it was played tomorrow, but assuming everyone's fit, based on form, yeah, I mean, I don't hate your Darwin on the left, Jota through the middle shout as well. I wouldn't be against that either. It's good that we've got options, really.
Yeah, it is.
It's not like we're scratching around.
And that's why we're where we are in the league, isn't it? Because we have got options. We've definitely got the strongest squad in the league, in my view.
Yeah, by far.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Now, there's one more question that pertains directly to us. And then there's been a few that kind of touch upon the Everton situation and the ramifications of that with Man City and the charges against them and stuff. But this is a fun one from Johnny H. Paul, come to you first. If you could have one guest on the pod, who would it be? One LFC and one non-LFC.
Okay, so
the LFC. There's three names. Excuse me. There's three names that sprang to mind. I mean, I think the obvious one is it'd be fucking great to have Jurgen Klopp on the pod, wouldn't it? I mean, can you imagine having Kloppo on the pod? It would be absolutely sensational. The only thing is, I think we probably, if we were going to do it, well, we would have to do it. We'd have to take our boy James up on his offer to use his studio, and we'd have to do it all sitting in the round and facing each other, because I don't think we get a word in edgeways otherwise with Kloppo if we were trying to talk to him. We'd have to be able to read body language and what have you. But it'd be fucking brilliant to have Jurgen on. The other two names, I mean, one is someone who's been on the pod before, which is Carrot. I fucking love Carrot. I've always loved him. I always will love him. I think many Reds now take him for granted because he's on our screen so much. I think familiarity has bred a little bit of contempt amongst some Reds with him as well. Maybe contempt is too strong a word, but I just think he's taken for granted a bit. I still think he's a phenomenal brain about football, and also a great talker about football. I'd love to chew his ear off. And then the other one, just for purely personal reasons, and Chris will think I'm trolling him now, is I would genuinely love to have a conversation with Luis Suarez. I'd like to talk to him about some of those crazy moments. I'd like to understand his mindset when he's playing. I'd really like to explore that hunger for football that he has. What comes to him when he pulls off some of those outrageous moves and the great goals that he scored. But I think the top of those three, it would be Kloppo. So Klopp would be my one guest. In terms of in terms of non-LFC, well, leaving aside the fantasy of getting Pep Guardiola on and grilling him about his cheating as a player with drugs and his cheating as a manager with fucking money and cheating at Barcelona when they're paying refs, which I wouldn't probably get one word out before he'd walk out, the fucking soft cunt. Leaving that aside, I think it'd have to be, I fucking love Ian Wright, it'd be Wrighty. Just over Roy Keane. I really like Roy Keane as well. The problem with Roy Keane is I think Roy Keane takes a while to warm up to people, and I think we'd struggle to get a lot out of him. Yeah. But Ian Wright is off. I just fucking love Ian Wright.
Both of them on.
That would work. That would work. But the other thing about Wrighty is he's as he's admitted many times, he's got a soft spot for us. Yeah. His older brother supported us. He always talks fondly about us, both in the past and now. And he's just such an infectious, likeable fella, and really knows his football as well. I loved him as a player, love him as a pundit, love him as a fella, and I think he'd be absolutely fantastic. So Jurgen Klopp and Ian Wright.
Yeah, I love Wrighty as well. So I would say Klopp's an obvious one. The only thing with Klopp is that there's like certain things that he probably wouldn't really dive too deep into.
I'm assuming we'd chat off air as well, Dave. So we can have a ghost pod as well.
Chris would have to completely rein in his Darwin slander because Kloppo wouldn't be having that. He'd be shouting at him even more than I was. But I actually think someone who'd be great to talk to would be Pep Lijnders, because he doesn't have that filter that Klopp's got. I think like you ask him a question and he just answers it. He's not.
That's a good point.
His press conferences are great. He gives you stuff that Kloppo won't really give you. So I'd like to have a chat with him. I think he's interesting and he's really open and he's dead enthusiastic when he's talking about footy. So I'd like to have a chat with Lijnders. Non-LFC, I went like non-footy with this one. I'd love Charles Barkley on. Charles Barkley is like one of the funniest people on the planet, and he'll talk about anything. Like I've listened to like loads of stuff that he's been on, and he's not talking about basketball. He'll talk about literally anything, and he's just hilarious. And he's like, I think he's like a national treasure. He's like the best American on the planet. Love him. So he'd be great. Apart from Meg, if you're listening, Meg.
Yeah, there you go.
Apart from you, Charles Barkley, best American on the planet. Nice. So yeah, that would be my two, probably Pep Lijnders and Charles Barkley.
What about you, Chris?
I thought about this one a little bit. There was a time when I really wanted Michael Owen to come on with us, because I felt for a while that I think that he got a little bit, not a raw deal, but I think he was a little bit misunderstood in terms of his departure, in terms of how well he's thought of as a player for us, in terms of how the club have kind of made him persona non grata in terms of his contributions. But I've kind of softened on wanting to do that over the last sort of year or so, when I just think he's just not that fucking interesting, really. I wanted to... my idea was to give him like similar to Cara did on the podcast that they did together. Just give him more of a forum and talk to him from more of a fan's perspective about how we felt about it, and give him a right to reply.
Yeah.
Now, I would also like to do that with Henderson as well, if I could get like a real sort of like honest sit down chat with him, if he would be frank about his regrets and that kind of thing. There's just so many Liverpool players that you'd really just want to like dive in really, really deep with, and be able to have that conversation and talk to them from a fan's perspective, rather than just, a reporter asking them questions. In terms of non-LFC, man, maybe... God, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that one. Keanu Reeves, maybe. I fucking love Keanu Reeves. And he's just like a really kind of like decent bloke.
Really nice guy.
I'd love to talk to him. Maybe like LeBron James or someone like that, just to get inside the mindset of...
No, he's
like,
non-LFC.
Really... Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. He's more significant to LFC than we are, probably. He gets more of a say in stuff. But yeah, just any one of a number of my like favorite musicians, and just to have the ability to chat with them long form, would be really cool as well. But in terms of Liverpool, in terms of it being in the context of a Liverpool podcast, I haven't really got a good answer for that, because obviously we'd want them to come on and talk about the Reds stuff, so it wasn't just us talking to a celebrity. Although I think that would be really, really fun as well. I'm in a quite privileged position that I've also managed to talk to a lot of people that I hold in very high regard. So and so that's kind of cool. So it kind of lessens the playing field for me a little bit.
What's your favourite one?
Ever?
Yeah.
I think probably Bret the Hitman
I
Hart.
knew you were going to say
my
that.
favourite.
Yeah, I knew you were going to
wrestler
say
from
that.
like a WWF wrestler. He was like my hero from when I was a kid, I suppose. And I got to talk to him for about like half an hour, 40 minutes, about 2008 or so as well. Johnny Barnes was another one. I only got to chat to him at some kind of sort of like weird... I think it was like a Snickers publicity event or something. Mr. T was another great one that I did.
Oh, brilliant!
It was fucking
brilliant.
ace. I think in that summer I did. It was me basically just meeting a bunch of my heroes. I got like Roger Federer, Kirk Hammett from Metallica, Nature Boy Ric Flair, Bret the Hitman Hart, and Mr. T. So it was just like basically a summer of me talking to loads of people I had great admiration for when I was a kid. So that was awesome.
That's boss.
Yeah, it was ruled. So this is the point where anybody in the podcast listening fraternity who doesn't want to hear the stuff we're going to talk about Everton's charges and the reaction to Man City's absence thereof of any action can probably tune out at this point. That's why I left it to this point, because we have a propensity to go on about this stuff a little bit, and it gets a little bit repetitive. But Dave, on a scale of 1 to 10, Manny asks, just how fucked are Everton?
11. Not even because of this, like the latest charge. It goes way beyond that. All this stuff with like 777 and the money they owe them. If the takeover doesn't go through, they're fucked because they've got to pay that money back to them. If it does go through, they're fucked because they're a bunch of cowboys. I don't see any way out of this for them. I just think it's like, it's serious trouble for them. And they may be looking at like further points deductions just from... Because you can't really see any other alternative here other than like bankruptcy, given like the debt and everything else. Unless somebody else comes in and buys them, not being jokers, they're fucked.
Do you know, Dave? That's when I was thinking about my answer to this. My answer was going to be quite short on this, really, because we've done the whole Everton's finances and all that to death. I think in the pod over the last year or so. How fucked are they out of 10? Well, I don't think there's any way you could argue they're not a 10. But if the reason they're maybe not an 11 is simply because there's no
10,
shortage.
So 11's not out of 10.
Well, you're the one who said 11. I gave them a 9 out of 10, and only because there's no shortage of rich pricks all over the world, but particularly in America, who want a cheap Premier League club with a stadium, a fan base, and a history. Now, whatever opinions we might have about any of those things, Americans are queuing up to get on the Premier League gravy train because they see what I've been banging on about for years about how Premier League football is still not monetised in the way American sport is. Premier League clubs will at some point in the future overtake the biggest American franchises. I know there's still some way to go, but it will happen simply because one has a truly global reach and the other has a semi-global reach. And I think that there will be people who want to take them on. Now, you could argue that, excuse me, bankruptcy brings its own problems for new owners. Relegation brings problems for new owners. But none of that quite negates the fact that I think you buy that stadium, you buy a reasonably sized fan base, and you buy the history. That's something you can work with if you're going from a clean slate. If you're doing what some owners have done when they've come in and taken over these clubs. So I think that will be a possibility. There will be people looking to spend big money on Premier League clubs, but they want to maximise value. I mean, just look at what FSG did. Just remind ourselves, they paid 300 and a bit million, whatever it was, for us. The club is worth well over 10 times that now, and they haven't put loads of their own money in. They haven't had to, and you know that's
you're
basically.
not allowed to.
Yeah, well, they can into investments, can't they? But they haven't done that. It's basically just free cash. So, and that's because what they've done is they've run the club well, and they've been on board the Premier League gravy train. They've found ways to maximise the awful phrase brand. So Everton's brand is not comparable with ours, but Everton's brand is also not insignificant. They do have a fan base, they've got a stadium, and those things will be worth something to somebody. So you can't rule that out.
And it's equally, Everton's brand is easily as big, or if not more significant than Manchester City's was before they they were taken over. So.
Absolutely. But the long and the short about
that you mentioned there, Paul, is the same. The free stadium.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, a stadium that somebody else has paid for, which adds a huge amount of value to the proposition.
In terms of the fuckedness of where they're at, they're fucked. They are fucked. They're in serious, serious trouble. But that is their get out of jail card, I think.
That's what I said. Unless someone else comes in and takes them over, they're absolutely... There's no way out of it for them.
Yeah. But this 777 stuff is I mean, it's almost like it seems to me like a Sopranos style bust out, where you basically you extract all value you can from the asset, and then you just let it die. It doesn't seem to me like a sustainable way for them to continue existing if that's the future for them.
Torching the restaurant.
Right.
Run up all the debts and then torch the restaurant. Claim on the insurance.
I mean, the Everton getting the new charges this week has brought into light just how much inactivity there is in terms of the Manchester City case, which, you know, Forest and Everton have new charges this week, while there are still charges that predate what Everton were hit with previously that aren't even close to being resolved. Like, where are you at with that, Dave?
Look, I understand all the reasons that they give why, and it all makes perfect sense. It's a bigger case, it takes longer to get all the information together. You've got to make sure it's watertight because City's lawyers are going to be all over it. It's dragged on as long as it has because City just keep putting roadblocks in front of the Premier League, not cooperating. Everton cooperated, Nottingham Forest cooperated. They basically admitted that they were guilty, and they're just saying mitigating circumstances need to be considered. Premier League probably won't take those circumstances into account. It'll probably be more points deductions. And while I completely understand the reasons why Man City's is not going to happen soon, it doesn't make it any easier to take. And if I was an Everton fan looking at that, or a Forest fan, I'd be like, what, you're picking on the little guys here? And it's like, I said this on the forum, Everton are basically like a shoplifter who doesn't really know what he's doing. He's like drunk, he's gone into a shop, he's grabbed like 3 packets of Revels, shoved them in his pocket, he's looked up at the security camera and given a stupid grin and walked out, and they've got him and they've charged him and punished him. Man City are basically like the fucking Yorkshire Ripper. They're just leaving bodies everywhere. They're covering the tracks. They're refusing to answer any questions. Which is the easier case to prosecute? It's fucking the shoplifter, isn't it? So that's Everton have been done because it's a smaller offence. It's a different offence as well. You know, it's different charges that are being brought. We know that as well. Everton basically fucked up. They didn't try to cover the tracks at all. They've like shown their accounts and gone, yeah, we've gone over. Man City are like, you're not seeing our accounts. Fuck off. No. Yeah, that sponsorship deal's perfectly legit. You can't prove otherwise. So that's the difference. Is like one is just not really fought the charges or argued against it, which makes them really easy to punish, and that's what's happened. And so they should be punished. You know, they broke the rules. Other teams have suffered as a result of that. Teams got relegated while they stayed up when they weren't playing by the rules. So yeah, they deserve whatever punishments they're getting, but that doesn't make it any easier to take when you see like Man City just carrying on regardless. They've fucking sneaked up to like 2 points behind us now. We're looking over our shoulders going, are they going to pip us to the league again? It's like going back to the Yorkshire Ripper analogy. It's like they're not even in jail. They're just letting them stay out and just keep murdering, and then eventually they'll get round to stopping it. But in the meantime, when Man City eventually get done, and whatever the punishment is, which we none of us have got any idea what will happen, but whatever it is, it doesn't change the fact that how many titles are they going to have had, and it'll be like. Probably, if they were to win it this year, that would be 4 times they've taken a title off us through cheating. Arsenal got done last year by them. They would have had a title. United have had a couple.
How many seasons have they ruined for
exactly.
all the fans?
They've ruined. We've spent like fortunes, not us, football fans right across the country. We've spent fortunes watching a competition which is supposed to be like a level playing field, may the best team win, all of that stuff, and it's not. It's basically, it means nothing. You know, they've totally ruined football for the last 10 years. They fucking ruined it with the cheating. No punishment that they get will be severe enough.
I mean, let me just come in at that point and to say that, you know, I feel okay about it really, because one of the things that I've been impressed is too strong a word really, reassured by is the Premier League's sort of dogged belligerence in not talking about it and just seeing it through. And I know it started ages ago, and I know it still hasn't come to fruition, and I know it might go on and on and on and on and on. But the fact that Masters wouldn't talk about it in Parliament today, I think is a good sign. I think they've got the bit between the teeth, and they're thinking we're going to not let any little slip up get in the way of achieving what we want to achieve. That doesn't take away the foul stench of the whole thing. And it doesn't kind of assuage the sense of injustice that lots of other fans must feel seeing their own clubs being punished while these get away with it. But as long as ultimately they're found guilty, then I'll be sound with it. The only problem is I slightly fear, going back to what I was saying before, about there's all the accountability in the world for those in the middle or especially at the bottom, but there's fuck all for those with power at the very top.
Money always
and
wins.
These people are some of the most powerful in the world. You know, it's an oil state, and I just that's my worry. And they've basically, some of those leaked emails, the football leaks, football WikiLeaks emails. You know, they're belligerently saying, one of them was it Sheikh Mansour himself? Somebody quoted in there, or was it Khaldoon or whatever his name is, quoted in there as saying, we'll just hire, UEFA can get as many lawyers as they want, and we'll just spend the next 10 years getting the 50, 500, 5,000 best lawyers in the world, tying them in knots until eventually it all goes away. And that is their strategy. That's what's been borne out. They've now been charged with obfuscation and delay. That's some of the charges relate directly to what it says in those emails they were going to do. They've been charged with that. And so that is a concern. But I think ultimately, if we get anything even vaguely approaching a guilty verdict in that, yeah, you cheated, sound, all of this will be fine. But when I talked about that death by 1,000 cuts earlier of all these little things, this is one of the bigger of the little cuts that really sort of kills that love of the game. You know, if they do get away, because they have cheated, they've been proven to cheat. Same as Guardiola, was proven twice to have failed the drugs test as a player, and he was sentenced to jail and got away on a technicality. You know, the same as all these things are actually factually correct. This has happened. What we're talking about now is just whether there's going to be justice about it or not. And if there's a lack of justice on this will just be one more pretty hefty nail in the coffin of the love affair that we all have with football.
What do you make, Paul, of the absence of media coverage on City's stuff? Is it just, I mean, like, they tend to, we tend to see them waxing lyrical constantly about how great Guardiola is, like how tremendous they are as a team, how well coached they are, the unprecedented scale of what they've achieved. Like in some ways, we need to rely on our press a little bit more to sort of call this stuff out a little bit and not be so complicit in it.
There's a couple of things going on there. I think we need to think in terms of the different purposes of different elements of the football media. So I think, you know, the talking heads around the game, excuse me, it's not in its purest sense entertainment for Sky or TNT or whoever to just be caveating every single conversation with 115 charges. It almost becomes ludicrous. But I also think there's a sense I get from most of the players that they don't care. You know, they just, in their minds, they kind of see it all as some sort of purity of footballing ability, and the amount of money that's paid is almost incidental, ignoring the fact that City wouldn't have been able to accumulate all these players if they hadn't cheated. They just see it as a sporting contest on the pitch. They've managed to accumulate all this talent under this leadership, and it can beat anything in front of them. And they want to see it in those quote unquote purest of terms. There's another element of the football media, the sporting media, which is more on the news side, and I think they have kept plugging away, but they don't have as high a profile. You know, our boy Nick Harris continues. I mean, he genuinely is he's an incredible guy, a national treasure as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, love him.
He's fantastic. You know, he's kept plugging away. Rob Draper the same. David Kahn in a smaller way and on other issues, you know, have done bits and pieces. John Cross has touched on it as well.
Rob
you know,
Harris
these people
as
are.
well, I think.
Yeah,
Rob Harris? It is.
Yeah. Oh, those people are out there and they're telling the story, but there's only so many ways you can tell the news story of it. As a news story, it's only news when it's in the news. When there's nothing happening, you can't keep recycling it. And I think on the and in terms of the sporting narrative, people are bored of it. And also, when I say people, I mean the talking heads who are paid to talk about it, and also it's not seen as entertaining. It cheapens the product. You know, Sky don't want to say that their perfect product that they pay all these billions for is tainted. You know, they're forced to talk about it at times, but they don't want to keep, you know, putting that narrative out there because ultimately it undermines sales of, you know, subscriptions. But people don't want to pay for a tainted product.
All the things you've said there's reasons for all of that. You know what I can't get my head around? How come, like, every game Man City play, the fans of the other team should be fucking baying for blood and calling them all the cheating bastards under the sun. That should be the narrative. Every game they play, they should be getting subjected to that from like the other team's fans. And it's like no one really gives a shit about that either.
Do we even do that? We don't do that.
No, I don't think so. But I think we might. I think we might do when we play them.
Well, maybe that's the next step.
I think.
But Dave, maybe if it's 4 seasons on the bounce when they win the title, you know, they won the treble last season, and we get into kind of like, you know, one horse race territory. Maybe finally people see the writing on the wall. You know, Arsenal fans still haven't quite understood what happened to them last season, have they?
No,
I thought
true.
they were starting to, and now they're
no.
not. They've wavered, they've fallen away, they've gone the other way again. They're looking in different directions.
It's funny seeing Everton fans complaining about it now when they fucking lauded City for so long.
Yeah.
They were like, thought the cheating was hilarious when it was stopping us winning stuff, but all of a sudden now it's like, hang on, look.
Now it's a double standard.
Look at Man City fans at Goodison the other week, down. They were singing about Everton being like cheating bastards. I'm like, oh, you shameless twats. Absolutely sickening. But obviously Forest are going to have beef now as well because they've been charged. They're going to be looking at that and going, well, this isn't right. I mean,
plus all the likes of other clubs who've tried to stay within it and are hamstrung by
Newcastle.
the sustainability rules. Yeah, exactly. Can't make signings. Like even, you know, there's 5 or 6 clubs, isn't there? We mentioned them before that are struggling to operate while City just get to swan around doing whatever they want and.
But they're not even spending much anymore
because
they don't need to, because they've given themselves like that big head start over so long. They've cheated for so long. They're now in a position where They just make like one big signing every summer, so they're not
And
actually taking the piss that much now.
And sell a Cole Palmer. Sell
Yeah.
a Cole Palmer, it's pure profit.
Yeah, but
You
what
know,
they are doing...
Move Oscar Bob on if they need to, you know, whatever.
The thing that they are doing that nobody really talks about, and probably because they're not submitting the accounts, it's like it's hard to prove. All of them sponsorship deals are all fucking bullshit.
Yeah,
You know, they're all
everyone.
massively inflated. They're all coming paid out of their owner's pocket. Whatever.
More income than Real Madrid. Fuck off.
That's what I mean. It's all of that's just fucking nonsense. It's so they're still cheating now just because they're not spending crazy amounts on transfers. And the other thing is, like, how many players are getting paid off the books? There's no way Haaland's wages that he's supposedly getting is what he's actually getting. He's getting way more than is getting reported. That's a fucking hill I'll die on. There's no doubt about it. But proving that when they're not letting you have access to the accounts and all that is, you know, this is what the Premier League's up against every time. Like, they're trying to get copies of, like, you know, relevant documents and all that. City just going, no, not giving you that. Like, there's a guy posted it all on Twitter tonight, like the timeline of it all. When things were requested, City said no, it went to court, they were told no, you've got to give that. Then they did, then they requested something else, City delayed it, went to court. That's why it started in 2018, I think. And they've just delayed and delayed and delayed, and there's still no end in sight, really.
The one thing I would say about all of that you're talking about there, Dave, is just because this case is ongoing now, some of the better newspapers and journalists will be doing ongoing investigations now. They will be looking at some of those things. Some of them will be investigating Haaland's finances. They'll be investigating Guardiola's finances. They'll be looking for those things. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll find it. There'll be private investigators who'll be after stuff, will be after dirt on it.
Well, if
there will
said,
be people.
Paul, this is how you would do it. If it was me,
that.
I would set up an account in Abu Dhabi for Haaland, and I'd pay a shitload of money, and I'd go, once you've retired, that money's all yours. You can just take it then. And who's going to know about that? Because if you request from like
A bank employee or somebody, there's always somebody who'll speak.
Yeah, and then they'll get
always...
the fucking heads chopped off. It's like, it doesn't work like that, does it?
The WikiLeaks came out, though. There'll be a technical, there'll be a data. People. I'm not saying they'll find it. I'm saying people are looking. People are still looking, and you don't know what will come out.
And it'll all come out, and it'll be too late by then anyway, because they'll have all left. And City in probably 10, 15 years' time, Abu Dhabi will have fucked it off, and City will just be left to rack and ruin. But that doesn't change all what's happened now, does it? That's the problem.
I'm not ruling out that they're getting away with it. I still think something could happen. I still think something could happen with the Premier League charges.
I'm saying whatever happens is not going to be anywhere near the justification. Like, to me, it's really simple. Like, whatever the punishment is, it's got to be severe enough that they think wasn't really worth it, was it? Otherwise, what's the point? If you give them, like, points deductions, you relegate them, whatever, and they've still got those titles to show for it, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, so we're in League 2 now, but we'll be back in a few years, and it was worth it. Look at all the memories we got. Look at all the trophies we won. All of that stuff. You've got to take everything off them.
Well, maybe
that's
they will.
the first stage. You've got to strip them.
It goes to an independent panel, so maybe they will.
Well, that's step one. You've got to take everything off them before you start talking about points deductions, relegations, all of that stuff. First and foremost, those titles, they cannot be allowed to keep them. That simple. And then we can talk about what happens after that. But that's the starting point to it. Anything less than that is just not acceptable.
Just to bring it back to Liverpool for a second, but in the unlikely event that they did get titles taken off them and the additional trophies came to us, would you have like Hendo and Raheem Sterling back to be presented with like medals on the pitch and stuff, Paul? That's from number 2 on the forum.
No. I wouldn't be of it. No, there shouldn't be any sort of. I wouldn't have. I don't think I'd do that. I certainly would want it up all on the Champions wall. I'd want all those numbers, trophies adding onto the Champions wall. I don't know if I could bring myself to fully. I mean, who knows how I'd feel at the time? Maybe I'd go absolutely fucking nuts. But I don't think I could bring myself to celebrate. I certainly don't think there should be some sort of like public celebration in that way, because it's already tainted in that we didn't get a chance to celebrate it at the time. I think those players should get their medals. I think maybe those players should have a chance to gather as a squad in private to have them presented. But I wouldn't really be in favour of a big all come back together and celebrate. And besides, you know, I don't want to, it's implicit in the question, I don't want to celebrate with Raheem Sterling, I don't want to celebrate with Jordan Henderson, so no, not for me.
Yeah, I don't think it was a serious question, Paul. I think he was taking the piss, to be honest.
Yeah, well, maybe you could though, couldn't you?
No, I know
maybe
in terms of what you're saying about, like, you wouldn't want, like, presentations and all stuff like that. I'm with you, but in terms of Sterling, well, I was going to say just take back all the medals he won at City and say you can keep one for 2014. But actually, no. Let him fucking keep his medals and he can keep one and give all the others to Henderson for how many that City fucking screwed Henderson out of. But you know what's going to happen is, like, even if they get stripped of the titles, those players in their heads, they've got the medals, they've still won those trophies. City will still have it up on, like, if they've got a wall of honour, whatever. They won't take it down. They'll still pretend that they've won it. But at least if it's officially taken off them, that's what I want. Take it off them. And then if it gets awarded to the second place team, so be it. If it doesn't, as long as they are not getting credit for shit that they fucking cheated to win.
yeah,
Right. Good stuff. Yeah, all agreed on that. Just to take you behind the fourth wall, or to break the fourth wall for a second, I've just had a text from Paul saying we're approaching 2 hours and he needs to get to bed. So we're gonna wrap
10
this
to
one up
midnight,
here.
I'm in work tomorrow.
Yeah.
I turned into a pumpkin 2 hours ago.
You're the reason why we're still going. I was going to be short on this answer, but I'm actually just going to talk for 10 minutes instead.
Such is the way these things normally go. That's why I wanted to get all the questions about us in before we started going on about other people, because, you know, it does tend to go on a little while. But I think we covered some good ground there. Thanks very much to everybody for submitting the questions. It really gives us a good opportunity to, you know, come together and have a chat and provide you with an episode when there's no games on. But thankfully there's only 3 or 4 more days now until the Reds are back in action. I think it's Sunday, isn't it? 4:30 kickoff away at Bournemouth. Dave, I'm sure you'll be back with the lads right after the game there.
Yeah.
Hopefully have the episode up Sunday night for you to listen to either then or on the way to work on Monday. Good stuff. You guys, anything else that you wanted to get in before we just...
No, let Paul go to bed.
All right.
The old man needs to sleep.
Yeah. Happy trails, mate. And I'll speak to you both soon.
Nice one, mate.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll catch you soon.
Well, the best word I can say, but will describe this, was boom. Ooh, what was this? It was really good.